Fantastic. I believe I am live now. All right, guys, I'm here now in Thyroid Healthy Balance. I'm not on the normal event page because I wasn't able to come through Zoom on that link. So I hope you can join me. Let me know when you drop in. I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes for people to drop in so that they can find where I am today. Just let me know. Oh, hi, Helen. You found me straight away. Woohoo! Fantastic. Helen's here. Just let me know when you're here. Just say hello. I'd love to know who's jumping on today. Let's get this very, very interactive. Love to answer any questions as I can. I've got one question that I've promised a lady that I'm going to answer on this call. However, let's get into it. All right. So you may have heard the gut-brain axis, right? It's been very, very well studied, and they've actually found some fantastic links between the gut microbiome and the brain in terms of mood, in terms of, anxiety, depression, and all of that via the vagus nerve, right? So it's like amphoteric. We've got the vagus nerve instigating the gut, which causes issues. I'm just keeping this very, very simplistic so that you can get an overview, which can potentially cause issues, causing dysfunction in the gut, disturbing the microbiome, which then communicates back up to the brain, right? So it's kind of like a two-way thing, right? Now, what about the gut-thyroid axis? Thanks, Shell. Shell's just tagged everyone here. What about the gut-thyroid axis? Okay. So especially if your thyroid challenge is coming from the autoimmune component, there is a very, very huge link through our digestion, through our seat of absorbing our beautiful nutrition, So let me just give you a little bit of a recap of what has been discovered so far before I get into this more recent evidence. So we know that autoimmune, there is no conclusive one thing. And the reason why there isn't a conclusive one thing is because there never will be, because we're all unique, we're all individuals, we all have different lots of genetics, different susceptibility factors, different environmental factors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have weaknesses and strengths within our own body, which is our seat of where we live, So there never will be one thing. I'm just going to make that clear now. The important thing is to find out where the gaps are so that we can actually create a smooth pathway so that our body can work on that physical level more congruently, right? More smoothly, So that's kind of the ultimate aim. So one of the hallmark symptoms for thyroid issue is when it's coupled with digestive issues. So you may have heard of small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which is that epigastric bloating and pain, can be pain, may not be pain, but epigastric, so that means above the navel, it's bloated. Nausea is another symptom. It occurs within half an hour of eating. It's quick, right? It can also occur with those types of fructose high FODMAP foods. You may have heard of that. Let me know if you've heard of that. This evidence that I'm going to uncover today gives some plausible reasons why that link is actually occurring, But again, I just want to go back into what we already know. So what we know is that stress can be an instigating factor, depending on your how you respond to stress. So your flight-fight response, how you respond, how much that actually impacts your digestive system, your seat of digestion, in terms of bloating, indigestion, loose stools, bowel motions, because if that has not been addressed over 1, 2, 10, 20 years, more often than not, what will happen is a disease process will begin. Thyroid, which you may or may not know, doesn't happen overnight. It's a couple of decades in the making before that disease process occurs. So that's one classic example of stress. Stress disturbs our microbiome. It doesn't only disturb our microbiome, it causes impacts with our cortisol, with our adrenal glands, which actually circuit break our thyroid hormone. So we've got a lot of different kind of endpoints, if you like, from something such as stress. Yeah, so that's one link into gut system. The other one is foods that are inflammatory to your body. So they cause what we see as little gap junctions. You know, our mucous membrane, we want it to be nice and tight and integral so that our beautiful food molecules can diffuse across that membrane to be then picked up by the portal vein and then kind of recalibrated into tissue, into circuitry networks to help with our energy, to help with our hormones, to help with our, you know, replenishing our body in so many different ways. Yeah, so that's kind of how we gain our optimal nutrition. It's at a microscopic level. And if our gut is inflamed, otherwise known as leaky gut, otherwise known as intestinal permeability, that's when what happens is we've got little, not just the food particles, but bacteria from the microbiome coming through and actually causing an antigen response, being an antigen for an autoantibody response, which is not dissimilar to thyroid, so hence confusing the immune system and causing, or I should say precipitating, autoimmune thyroiditis. Yeah, so that's again another simplistic way, but that's another been a plausible theory which kind of stacks up and adds up, especially when we know that when we change the diet, we ameliorate signs and symptoms, we feel better in our digestive system, and then down the track, the knock-on domino effect of that is it helps, coupled with other health fortifying rituals, that helps to calm down our autoimmune response, yeah, often bringing you back into remission, yeah. So this is what's been witnessed, but thus far, no proof, and science always likes to try and prove, and I feel that there'll always be gaps in there because you can never get the same result from one demographic of people. There's always, you know, they look for statistical significance, which means that for the majority of people, we got this result. But more often than not, as I demonstrated in the live last week, we can't then just disseminate that and put it to the rest of the population because we don't know what else is going on for that person in their body, because each person is unique and an individual. Yeah, let me know if this makes sense. Thumbs up, please, if this makes sense. Ask questions as well. Okay, so inflammation, stress, genetic susceptibility is another one. In fact, you may well know that the thyroid gland and the gut both come from the same embryonic tissue. So when we're being made, you know, when we're, you know, before life, when we're being created, they actually stem from the same embryonic tissue. So that pretty much explains why it's a very plausible link between the Thyroid-Gut Axis, because it's from that same embryonic line. Okay, so the same group of cells, when they're creating you, you know, they're from the same pool, and then they go, okay, I'm going to go and make thyroid gland here. It's like, okay, good on you, see you later. I'll communicate with you for the rest of my life, but I'm going to create the small intestine. Yeah, so that's what that means, comes from the same embryonic tissue. So that's another one. And then, of course, we understand dysregulation of the immune system, which I will do another live on. I truly believe it's so much more than physical, so much more than physical. But that's not about today. Today is about reviewing the recent research. So let me get into that right now. Systemic review article, systematic, not systemic, a systematic review article. So this is examining the association between the gut microbiota and autoimmune thyroid disease. So autoimmune thyroid disease meaning either Hashimoto's or Graves'. And it's a systematic review and meta-analysis. So that is gold standard level of evidence. The reason why it's gold standard is because it's not one clinical trial. It's a pool of trials that have been put together. Once they exclude all of these things, and then they have their inclusion criteria and their exclusion criteria, they make sure there's no confounding factors. That means any other level of piece of information that may skew the results. So they do all of that to make sure it's a good study, right? And what they have found is that bifidobacteria and lactobacilli, so you may have seen those on the ingredients in pot set yogurt. So bifidobacteria and lactobacilli were decreased in the autoimmune thyroid disease group, and more harmful bacteria or microbiota like Bacteroides fragilis was significantly increased. So this is in the group. This is what their findings were. Now that is really, really interesting, because that tells me a couple of things. That immediately explains why there is such a big link between thyroid and SIBO or SIBO or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, because often the Bacteroides fragilis and family are the overgrowth of those bacterium in the small intestine for those clients or people suffering from small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Yeah. Now, someone may have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth and not have a thyroid condition. Yeah. It doesn't mean they're not two peas in a pod. It doesn't mean that this goes with that, they match, and that's what you got. It doesn't mean that at all. It is just explaining that there is a link. There is a link, and they've found in the evidence that this is a plausible link. Yeah. Doesn't mean that you need to go out and buy pot set yogurt forever and a day and always have that bifidobacterium and lactobacilli. Not necessarily, because we don't know what's going on in your system. We don't know what your microbiome is like. You know, we don't know what the breadth and plethora of your microbiome is compared to the study population that was studied here. We don't know that. So, but what it does tell us, or tell me, is that it's really, really valid to do that deep level of testing, which is what I do for my clients when there's digestive distress. And that is like a GI 360 mapping or biomapping or gut function test or something like that. Yeah, because what that does is it takes the guesswork out of it. Now, don't get me wrong, as a practitioner, I've done both. I've gotten a set of signs and symptoms and gone, okay, that sounds like this, let's do this. And more often than not, we'll get a result, but sometimes we don't. However, when we really take the guesswork out of it and actually look at what's going on for that person as an individual, that's when we can go, okay, well, this species is out of whack. That's going on. This is going on. We've got an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase, which amps up. That kind of gets overactive when the body's trying to detox. You know, if that's high, it means that the body's under duress. It means the liver needs support. So it just gives more breadth to the picture, right? So again, this is just explaining there's no one size fits all, you know, but this gives a piece of evidence. So when we test when there's not enough evidence. We test when we've done a little bit of, we may test if we've done a little bit of trial and error and it hasn't been resolved. So that's when we seek to find out and gain more information through evidence. We don't test for the sake of testing. Never, ever, ever. And we don't test, we don't test for the sake of testing, and we don't test unless there is something that it could be potentially changed in the person's diet, lifestyle, and as a proposed treatment plan, getting that person from A to B, but not forever and a day. Yeah, treatment plan is to get you from A to B for a finite period of time. It's not supposed to be, an actual supplementary protocol forever and a day, because we have our dietary and lifestyle avenues that are there and are free and available for us for the rest of our lives. But sometimes we do need that little bridge to get us from A to B. Let me know if this is making sense. And if you have any questions, please pop it in. Right, I'm just going to go on a little bit more about this particular study. So we know that dysbiosis, that is when, see, we've all got all of these gut bugs. We've got somewhere between 30 and 300 trillion gut bugs in our system. Yeah. The reason why I say 30 and 300 is because I don't really know. It's different for different people. But the more diverse your range is, generally the better off you are in terms of preventing disease not just thyroid, I'm talking about any type of disease. I'm talking about Crohn's, ulcerative colitis. I'm talking about other types of autoimmune function. I'm talking about ensuring your intestinal membrane is intact. So whilst I just mentioned that point, I will also then go and say that what they have found is that those with low numbers of bifidobacterium and lactobacillus in their individual microbiota tend to have more intestinal permeability, right? So leaky gut, right? Inflammation. So then we can then see that these particular strains would be beneficial and helpful to assist in healing gut lining, right? Now, I feel like this is a little bit of a tangent, but I feel that it's really important. When we take supplementary probiotics, we should, well, ideally, we want to know why we're taking it. That's very, very important. They're not just to be taken willy-nilly forever and a day. They don't go down and plant little seeds and create new little gut bugs. That's not what happens. They don't inoculate, you know. But what they become is they become a treatment plan, a treatment phase to take pressure off your own system and help with healing certain areas of that structure. So, for example, if you've got evidence of inflammation, the Bifidobacterium and Lactobacillus species, or family, I should say, because then we've got species as well. I should say that they're the families. They are very, very helpful in healing that intestinal lining. Yeah, right. So the other thing that, coming back to this study now, the other thing is what they found is butyrate, which is a short chain fatty acid, which is produced in our bowel, is very, very beneficial for healing as well. So by doing a gut function test, you'll be able to assess what your levels of butyrate are, as an example. Yeah. So it's really, really valid and warranted to do a gut function test. Now, I'm not talking about going to the doctor and doing a poo sample to test for parasites. I'm not talking about that. That's different. I'm talking about a comprehensive gut function test, which actually not just looks at the gut function, it looks at the microbiome. Over in the States, that's called Viome. You know, there's a company that does one that's Viome that I'm aware of now. Over here, it's the one that I use is the GI 360, which is the gold level standard. It's the highest level of testing, and it gives the most information. In fact, it leaves no stone unturned. And the reason why I do that is because we really want to know if we're going to do a sample, if we're going to test, we want to know what's going on. Yeah. So I hope this is making sense. So back to this study, what they found is those with the autoimmune thyroid disease had more dysbiosis, so that means less diversity, but they had more richness, bacterial richness. So that means fewer species. Helen, you need that. Let's chat, Helen. We've been chatting for a little while, but let's chat properly. Fewer species, but overgrowth. And that lends itself to what I mentioned before, which is the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Okay. All right. So that is what came up in this study. Now, by the way, this study was 2021. Okay. So it's not totally recent, but it's really great that they're doing these types of study, like right down to the actual bacteria in your gut. You know, like this is kind of new for science. So I'm very excited about this, that they're doing this for thyroid. So down the track, more is going to be, you know, we're going to see a lot more of, hopefully, of these types of studies. Now, let me just jump to the conclusion. The conclusion is, again, says that microbiome effects is still unclear. It's still autoimmune thyroid disease in terms of its etiology, in terms of what causes it, what triggers it, what makes it worse, is still controversial. Of course it's controversial, yes, because there's not going to be like one thing that says, okay, everyone do this. And it's, so this is 2021, it's still controversial. So this is why it's incredibly important to work really, really closely and actually get to understand your body, build a relationship with the physicality of your body, and understand what's going on in your mind and your emotions so that you can actually make choices to serve you. Yeah? All right. So, and it says that research data is limited. Well, we know that. Yep, research data is limited. Therefore, a further multifaceted approach is needed to clarify the underlying pathogenesis and progress of intestinal microbiota dysbiosis in autoimmune thyroid disease. Woohoo! Well, that's what we know. More investigation is required. Yeah? So while they go and investigate, thank you, with gratitude, love, and respect to the science of this world, while they go and do all that testing and find out, try and find a cure, let's get to work. Let's get to work. What do we know about your body? What changes, what fundamental changes can we make in your diet, in your lifestyle to help you recalibrate your thyroid? Own your seat of expression. Calm down the inflammation in your body that is causing digestive distress, otherwise known as the inflammasome. So when we've got these bacterial leaking across the gut and creating an impact with the autoantibodies, it's called an inflammasome, right? So we want to halt this disease process. We want to halt this because this is not an overnight picture. It doesn't just begin one day. Often it has been going on for years before it's diagnosed. So, when I chat to clients, I often want to know, the date of diagnosis, formal diagnosis. If there isn't a formal diagnosis, sometimes we need to go and get one. It's just good to kind of have that, to understand. It's not pigeonholing either. It's not pigeonholing. It's just understanding that these things are happening in your body. So that's kind of what is the term for it at the moment. But also, and more importantly, is when did all these symptoms start? What was the life event that might have triggered it? More often than not, it's something that's really stressful, something that's just knocked you for six, derailed you. It could be a work situation. It could be a very stressful life event. Often there'll be something. And from that, it's really important not to be nosy, but it's really important because it gives a glimpse of how you've responded and then where more work is to be done so that we don't get the same response. Because the thing is we can never control our external circumstances, ever. We can never control our external circumstances, and like what a huge job would that be as well, if that's what you try to do. But what we can control is our response, the level at which it impacts us, our level of anxiety toward that external thing, our level of overwhelm to that external thing. We can choose what foods fortify our body when we know what they are. We can choose what things to do for our microbiome to heal the intestinal lining, to help prevent the cascade of that autoimmune response. We can understand and acquire knowledge so that we know what to do for ourselves to help fortify our thyroid gland, to help the communication between our pituitary, our adrenal, our thyroid, and our ovaries or testes, our reproductive hormones, because they all communicate. That's why it's called an axis. Yeah? So if you've still got these pieces to the puzzle. If you're experiencing digestive symptoms, you know, if you are unaware of what foods cause harm, what foods fortify you, or you're just not getting the energy from foods anymore because it might have knocked on to that next level where you might have some insulin resistance or blood sugar issues or hormonal imbalance or depression, anxiety, because it's just knocked on. It's kind of, you know, the body, it doesn't go, okay, here's a disease, let's stop. If we don't turn that ship around, it's going to influence other systems in our body. Yeah. So there's an old saying that Hippocrates said, you know, Hippocrates from way back BC, 300 BC or whatever it was, 500 BC. And it's all disease starts in the gut. Okay. So, and I actually believe that to be true. So I think if we heal the gut, if we heal what's going on at that seat of exchange between the nutrition of our food and how it calibrates in our body for our processes and energy and our building blocks, for our mind to work, for us to make our decisions, for our hormonal network to be sound and balanced, for our emotional well-being to be sound and balanced. If we actually utilize the best foods for our body, for your body, for each individual's body, you are going to be in a better position to heal your thyroid, yeah, on a physical plane. And I'm not going to get into the mental and emotional or spiritual. Just can't keep to the physical. So, aha moment. I love it. Helen, tell me your aha moment. Yeah. All right. So if you just wanted to have a conversation, let's chat, let's connect. Let's connect. Let's just have a conversation about how this, if this resonates with you and what you can do for your body. Yeah. What you can do for your body, either with me or on your own. Yeah. I have in my thyroid restoration roadmap, I have kind of broken it down so you can get started with phase one. Phase one, which actually has a handful of close one-on-one appointments. We drill down into your own individual picture to find out where the gaps are, to find out where the question marks are. We do a high level of testing, and this is all covered. I cover this because I don't like beating around the bush. Yeah, I don't know if you know me well enough, you'll know I don't like to beat around the bush. I don't like to try and utilize the medicos because we only get half the information, or we don't get even a quarter of the information sometimes. And it just lags on, it lingers, it lags, right? So taking full ownership, you taking full ownership for your health and wellness. And I step up with you to do this high level of testing where we need to, you know, and we have close communication. Over a 6-week container, we have close communication where we are contacting each other. We are in close communication to find out this, to find out that, to look at this, to look at that, to go down this rabbit hole, to go down that rabbit hole. When have you ever had someone, you know, on your, you know, linking arm in arm to actually go down this exploratory phase to find out what's going on for your body? So this is phase one. This is what we do. And then where deemed necessary, I set you up with a treatment plan. Of course, we look at diet and lifestyle. We drill down in that all the time because that will always become your foundational pillar. So when you're long gone, healed and beyond, your foundational pillars will always be there at your fingertips, your dietary and lifestyle blueprints. That's why we begin there. This is always humming under the surface, humming in the background, yeah? Because that will be your building blocks for you forever and beyond until the golden, ripe old 100-year-old self you'll become, yeah? But in the meantime, we may need a little bridge, little helping hand, little bridge from A to B, and that could be in, you know, it could resemble a supplementary protocol, especially if there's gut dysbiosis, if there's a gut bug, if there's a parasite or there's a yeast overgrowth or whatever it is, bacterial overgrowth, SIBO, whatever it is that's going on for you, we potentially would need a treatment plan. And all that is in phase 1. So it's all covered in phase 1. So if you're looking at making a start, stepping up, taking ownership, claiming your health, letting all the other business just fall away, and actually for once stepping into your power to claim your health, just type yes and let's have a chat. An obligation-free chat to see what's going on for you, for me to give you more breadth of what phase 1 will look like, how it will look like for you, how it will look like with us working together. And I'm going to leave you with this. Type yes, and there's no looking back, because you will have taken, once you take that first step for your health, whether or not we're working together, you're already taking ownership. You're already getting that energy in motion. You're already going to start to make some changes just from what you've picked up, because you're saying yes to you. If you're catching up with this later on, I would love you to do a hashtag replay, and let me know that you're here. Pop any questions into the group. Oh, and before I go, I'm going to be talking about exercise and weight loss for the next 5 minutes, because I had one beautiful lady ask me about that and whether that will help decrease your thyroid autoantibodies. And the truth of the matter is, yes, absolutely, because what does exercise do? If exercise is prescribed for where you're at right now, which is a must for every single person, if any health practitioners out there telling you not to exercise, run the other way, literally run the other way, right? Because exercise is extremely important for you to manage your stress, for you to keep your cardiovascular system functioning really, really well, to assist you with weight loss, to assist you with your metabolic recalibration. Yeah. Now, am I saying to go out and run a marathon? Absolutely not. Of course not. But prescribed exercise for where you're at, to meet you with where you're at, and then help nudge you along the way to get you fit and healthy is absolutely crucial. And that the knock-on effect of that will help to decrease stress and will help calm down your whole stress cycle, right? So exercise, absolutely. Will it happen overnight? No. No, I'm not going to tell you it's going to happen overnight. Will it happen in 6 months? Probably not, in isolation of everything else, you know, but will it happen coupled with some other things to do for yourself? Absolutely it will. And weight loss, yes, because when we harbor extra fat on our bodies, that is actually an extra level of inflammation in our body, right? So the more fat around our organs, the more fat in our body that's actually unnecessary, it is actually causing an inflamed state in our body. So weight loss is really, really important. Is it easy to do with Hashimoto's? It depends how much the thyroid is being affected in terms of hypoactivity. So sometimes we need to, you know, these are end products. Sometimes we need to really drill down, look at gut function, look at all of those elements, those beautiful dietary elements that are going to support the function of your thyroid. Also to see whether your own individual picture, do you have a thyroid gland? Do you have half a gland? Are there any nodules? Are there any cysts? Is it well functioning? Are you having all those micro and macronutrient, micronutrients and minerals to help support thyroid functioning? Yeah. And if you're unsure about that, I've done other lives on that. Just pop something into the chat and I will connect you with some of the other lives. All right. So essentially exercise and weight loss is absolutely crucial for any disease process, but absolutely crucial for Hashimoto's thyroiditis and helping to reduce your autoantibodies, but not in isolation of all the other good things, such as those that heal your gut lining. All right. So if you're new into this group and you'd like to have a chat and if you'd like to connect, just type connection. Fantastic, Helen. I'll be in chat with you. Congratulations in stepping into that quantum world of yours right now, right here, saying yes to the universe that you're wanting to heal. That's amazing. You've already set the wheels in motion. I'll be in touch soon. If you're jumping in here, as I mentioned before, if you're new and you'd just like to connect, if you'd just like to have a conversation, obligation free, just write connection and I will connect with you. All right, that's it from me. Have a beautiful week, and do something beautiful for yourself. Bye for now.